Welcome, everybody, to another Industry in Transition Zoom call. I'm thrilled to have my friend Bob Oros with us today. We're going to go through a lot of stuff. And in fact, Bob, this is going to be a very lazy interview since I don't have my notes in front of me and you have the notes about what we talked about. So you may be asking yourself a lot of the questions and I'll just sort of sit back.
This is going to be the best interview ever. I've never had that much control, but thank you, Tony.
Well, I'll still interrupt you and all that kind of stuff. Don't worry about that. One of the things, and you and I talked, on the phone trying to come up with some good ideas. And I thought it, and you thought that, how advisors can build value in their practice is an important thing. And we've already gone through our last call, how we're all dealing with this COVID stuff. You guys seem to have your arms around it, but it does give you a little time for reflection. You know what I mean? You're home, you're finding a few more hours in the day. And what are you seeing advisors doing that's sort of adding value? I'd love to get a sense of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. After 6 months of this, it does seem a little bit like an old conversation, but it has been a time where I think advisors are reflecting on their businesses and longer term, what do they want to do? Do I want to go alone? Do I want to go with a partner? And as I always say, I'm not a believer that everybody needs to sell to someone bigger. I think the independent advisor business, the, cottage nature of it is going to continue. I mean, that's one of the things that makes our business so great. But I do think for many, they've used this as an opportunity to think about value. And there are ways, if you're running a business, you can absolutely impact it. And I guess it starts with that word business and you reference practice. Like we need to quit thinking of these as practices. I mean, to me, practice sounds like it's a hobby, it's a lifestyle, it's a technical thing.
So many guys run their businesses like that, right? That's always been the challenge when you're a manager or you're CEO of a firm. You want your guys to start looking at it. And the thought has always been you work in your business rather than on your business. And part of that's a natural reflection of trying to build the damn thing. It's so difficult to do. You don't have time to sort of take the blinders off. You're doing the best for your clients. You're trying to build your book. Very hard to take a step back. But you get to be about 50 or so, there's certainly some time when you ought to be thinking about it. You got to sort of break those bad habits. I mean, is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think number one, I've always said, I think advisors who have built these things, they've earned the right to do whatever they want with it. I would only say, practice the same things you're probably preaching to your clients, right, which is, a holistic plan, a set of goals and objectives, and then take the right actions to achieve it. And so, I think sometimes this notion of going from practice to business is scary because guess what? If you're running it like a business, you have accountability, which means you need to be willing to be accountable to your team, especially if you're the one who's the rainmaker responsible for all the growth. So I always start with, if you want to maximize the value of this asset you've created, let's think of it that way. It starts with run it like a business, have a strategy, have metrics you're paying attention to, develop talent, and create something that can leave a legacy for you, because these things should persist well into the future. And so I think that for me is always the starting place, is someone running it with that kind of discipline and rigor. And it doesn't mean you have to give up, the fact you want to go do other things, like maybe you want to play golf twice a week. That's great. You can still run your business like a business.
Well, I think what's interesting about that for me is the idea of perpetuity, right? That you want that if you do it the right way, this business is sustainable. So maybe it's not for your children or your cousins or whoever, but it's sustainable for your partners, and then of course that means it's sustainable for you long term.
And it's sustainable for your clients.
And your clients, of course, right?
Your clients have made a decision to entrust, what's typically one of the most important things we have, which are our financial assets and helping us achieve the goals we've set, the dreams we have. And so if nothing else, out of obligation to your clients, keep this thing going, because we all know, great advice is not everywhere. And if you're not keeping your business alive and well into the future, maybe that client ends up somewhere where they're not treated quite as well.
So in terms of getting this message out there, obviously, I'm assuming there's some programs you guys have at Hightower that you're using. What's the most effective ones, and how are you getting that message out there to the folks in the field?
Yeah, so let me give you one other area, which honestly is the first thing beyond, do I think they're running this with the formality of a business? The first place I go if I'm looking at an advisor's business and assessing the quality of it is growth. And I don't mean revenue growth, because revenue growth, we all know, gets impacted by market. And over the long term, markets go up. Businesses feel like they're successful because their revenues are growing. In reality, they may not be growing at all from a same-store sales net new asset standpoint. So the first thing I'm looking at is this thing growing? Because a business that's not growing is frankly not nearly as valuable as one that is. And in the independent space, average growth of an RIA is about 4.5%. So if you're growing under 4.5%, you're falling behind, and you're one poor market cycle from, really seeing, attrition happen in your P&L.
Well, the emperor's going to have no clue when the market jumps out of bed. I mean, that's the problem. So everybody's a genius in a 10-year bull run. You get lazy, you develop bad habits, and then things don't grow the way they ought to grow. And 4.5% is pretty modest, growth. And
it is.
In terms of accounting for it, in my mind, it's should be new accounts. That should be a good habit that you keep getting into. New accounts, no matter what. I know you have to open these huge accounts. I'm not sure that's the case. You just got to open accounts. Different products.
Well, and that 4.5% is a net new number. That's another important delineation here. You can't just focus on the gross. Assets coming in, don't get me wrong, very important, but these are businesses where assets go out the door. Clients spend their money. Clients unfortunately die. Clients go through life events like a divorce, or they're paying for a daughter's wedding, or they're funding kids' education. So, the first day of the year, you've got some percentage of your assets that are leaving. And so can you grow fast enough to make up for that, plus, a big surplus? So when we're looking at businesses, like, I want to see someone who's growing faster than the industry average. And I also want to see that there's a process behind it that's driving it. Because, you can have accidental growth. You can get referrals from clients, even though you may lack a process around driving those referrals.
Yeah, no question about that. Doing things on purpose is a critical thing in every business, yours and mine too. Make sure we can have repeatable things that we can keep doing. So
yeah, that's the word. It's repeatable, not accidental growth, but repeatable growth that, as long as I work my process, the growth is going to come. And so what I look for is a growth mindset. And, you may think that's hard to sort of quantify, but you really can. And it's around, depth of process, metrics, measuring everything you're doing to understand what works and what doesn't.
So I'm not pandering here for Hightower, but do you have programs? And if you don't, then now you're in trouble if you don't have them. But do you have programs that are sort of designed to help advisors in these specific things that you're mentioning?
Yeah, this would be one of those awkward moments, Tony, if I didn't, where I was redirecting the question since we do.
I like the way you held off until I had to ask you about it. That's good too.
Yeah, well, thank you for asking that question. We do, but as the old cliche goes, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink. So we're not naive. It's that mindset, and we believe if someone's wired for growth, we can help teach them process. So we've got a few things we do for our advisor businesses that we think help create sustainable growth. One is marketing. So we have an in-house marketing agency that will handle everything from websites to SEO to SEM to value propositions and everything in between. So we provide advisors with access to robust marketing, which most of them don't have on their own. So that's one thing. We've got a marketing platform that's technology-based where we create customized content. We do campaigns, campaign management, campaign measurement, on behalf of our advisors. And, those are the types of things, the types of activities that lead to growth in a funnel,
And an
which is the next thing.
Advisor's not doing that on their own either. Typically they're not.
Typically not. I mean, some are. I mean, the ones that are growing 2 standard deviations out on the growth curve. But here's the number one thing we found that is an indicator of growth. And that is, do you actually maintain a funnel or a pipeline of prospects? And for many advisors, they'll tell you, yes, it's on a piece of paper, it's in their head. For those who actually systemize it, so it's in a Salesforce, they're actually measuring velocity. Like, how long does it take me to work a prospect through my process? Those grow at 3 times those who don't have it. So, we work with them on all those levels, from establishing a pipeline, creating marketing programs. And then the other thing we do that we think has a ton of value is we bring advisors together in these little learning bubbles where we put them into programs like Growth, where they're working with 20 other advisors in a curriculum-based approach where we're teaching them about what kind of processes lead to consistent results.
And that's actually a good answer for one of the challenges that the independent space has. I started 2 independent firms, I love them, but there are some great things about being in a branch. If you're a good branch manager, you're getting everybody together and you're getting this collection of great ideas. People are learning from other people. They're learning from mistakes as well as successes. They're sharing a lot of information, and that's extremely valuable if you're in a well-run branch. And it's a challenge for us in the independent. I'm glad to see you sort of addressing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on. Folks are on an island. And then they're only as good as the best thinking on their little island. But if you can expand your island and gain access to, not only 4 smart advisors, but hundreds of smart advisors, boy, that's a competitive advantage.
And everything we just talked about process with advisors, I want to change the subject here a little bit, also applies to firms, right? And so the M&A world and the world of recruiting, it's the firms that have these processes and pipelines that are in place that actually work the process that succeed, because it's inevitable, right? You just do all this work and you make things happen. So what are you seeing? Because I know now you guys are super active in this space, and, just want to get a sense from you, how's it going? How's it been going through COVID with the M&A stuff? And then also, where do you think this is going, going forward?
Well, I mean, we've made a decision that M&A was going to be a core competency for us. I don't think this is one of those things you can do as a hobby. Now, I'm not going to say people won't occasionally be opportunistic and find a deal because maybe they know somebody, maybe they participated in a study group together. But if you're really going to do acquisitions as a discipline, you need to have your eyes wide open. And so we've made that choice. We have a large team who focuses on this. And it's been, interesting. I mean, our activities were quite high coming out of 19 into 20. And as you might imagine, March and April came and M&A slowed down, as it should, because people were focused on serving their clients, creating stability in the relationships they had. But then everybody who was already thinking about doing it, at least with us, wanted to re-engage. So, we've been very fortunate. We've announced 7 deals since the end of March. Those aren't going to be the last announcements for the year. And I think we're going to see acceleration because it's, what we experienced with COVID and the pandemic highlighted that fundamental strategic question of, do I go alone or do I go with a partner?
Well,
and I will always say, Tony, like, not everybody needs to do a deal, but everybody needs to be educated.
The other thing is some firms are getting wobbly. There's been they've not really well executed firms that maybe have some issues on the balance sheet, stuff like that, are exacerbated by markets in times like these.
Absolutely. And, the other thing we're seeing is during times of disruption, I think from a client perspective, at some point, if they haven't already done it, they're going to step back and say, was I served properly by my advisor during this? Which puts a premium on having as many different things that you can do for a client as possible. Like another whole conversation could be fee pressure. And I personally am not a buyer of fee pressure. I'm more a buyer of fee for value. And I think there is pressure on expanding the value you're bringing. And if you're not continually adding to the services you're delivering to your clients, that probably makes you more vulnerable.
Well, I think there's no question that, that's part of what, in my mind, what's going to come out of COVID. So, not only is it the clients, being more willing to deal with the Zoom technology and things like that, but, they've become a little bit more self-reliant. And so you're going to need to add some of these technological factors to your practice in a meaningful way in order to maintain and grow. And maintain is not enough. No, the maintaining guys are going to go like this.
Well, I mean, and you just brought up another, I think, critical attribute to value is client experience. Like, what kind of client experience are you delivering for your clients? Do you segment that experience so that, different types of clients are getting something different from you? Are you properly leveraging technology? And so I think, again, client experience is another driver of value in the business.
Yeah. So in these changes, I guess, what are the challenges, internally, or are there any challenges internally with the folks who signed up for sort of Hightower Mach 1 to Hightower Mach 2? Does it feel like that, or does it feel like to you pretty smooth and, not an issue?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've really melded our different chapters together pretty well. And at the end of the day, there's a common thread for us at Hightower, which is quality of advisor. And, we're focused, irregardless of where they came from, we've always been focused on working with fiduciary-minded, high-quality, world-class advisors who serve their clients well. And I think when you put those types of people together, it doesn't really matter where they came from. They just sort of fit.
Well, I think it's also just part of an evolutionary move. You see the multi-channel approach, which I think you can argue this is one, coming from a lot of regional firms. People are adding RIAs, they're adding, choice for advisors, everywhere except for some reason, very large wirehouses. Everyone seems to be embracing a multiple model, concept because, as we've said, not one shoe doesn't fit everybody.
Well, the models have converged, and I actually think the models are way more similar than they are different these days. So you're absolutely right.
And that's economics. And I wonder, I guess, in terms of what you think is going to happen going forward in our business, because I would sort of, agree to that. And I think in a lot of ways, the economics are kind of met up. We figured out the indie versus the regional. So what do you see happening in the future? Not just M&A, but just for the business in general coming out of this?
Yeah, and I won't make this comment just because we're in the business of consolidating advisors through our own M&A strategy, but I do think scale matters. And I think advisors, the one thing they can't create more of is time. And so when you have to start thinking about how you allocate your time and how much of it is towards things that are outside that client value chain, meaning when your business starts to become big, you can become a victim of your own success. And now all of a sudden you have to worry about HR, you have to worry about finance, you have to worry about compliance and technology, and guess what? Information security, pretty big deal. So I think as advisors start to get squeezed for time, it will drive more and more consolidation just to take advantage of scale. Draft off of someone else's scale in all those areas outside the client value chain. So you can really focus on highest and best use, which I think for most advisors, they tell you, man, I just want to serve my clients. I want to spend time with my clients. I don't want to find new ones.
Yeah.
And that's sort of their mission.
We're hitting about that 20-minute or so mark. What didn't I ask you about, or what did we talk about that I forgot to mention that we were gonna talk about here at the end?
Well, number one, I don't think you need your notes. You did quite fine. I've enjoyed watching your dog prance around in the background.
He's been knocking the screen too, by the way. So
yeah, I'm going to invite mine into my office next time. But no, I think hopefully what everybody will take away from our chat is, one, you can have control over the value of your business. Like, just take the time to step back and think of it that way and talk to smart people. You don't have to do this alone. whether it's reaching out to a Hightower, reaching out to an industry consultant or a peer. Like, there are plenty of avenues to go learn. And then the second point, just be educated. That way, whatever decisions you're making from an educated, eyes wide open point of view. And if you decide after learning that, you know what, I'm going alone because I'm going to bet on myself, I don't think I need help from someone else, like, I embrace that. That's an educated call.
Yeah, I agree. Well, look, you know, we're all big believers, I think, both you and I, in the future of this business and the future of advice, you know, versus that's still going to be the thing we put premium on. So still a great business to be in. Question for you. If you had your kids came to you and wanted to be in this business and sort of getting older, what would you say to them? Or would you encourage them or not? Or how does that work for you?
Yeah, I would encourage them, and I already encourage them. I remember one of our kids having a financial planning module in their high school curriculum,
Yeah.
and couldn't tell them like enough good things about this business. When you think about how many places can you combine technical skills with interpersonal skills, with career opportunity, and guess what? You're doing good. You're helping people achieve things. So, like, I think this is such a phenomenal career choice for anybody who has interest in any of those disciplines.
And also the entrepreneurial factor of owning your own business is so critical today, you know, for people. So it's just great. Bob, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. We'll continue this conversation.
Yeah, always good to see you, Tony. Love your yard. I loved hearing the birds chirping. Quite relaxing.
I feel very relaxed. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.
Be well. Thanks.